Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed this free clip of aggressive progressives on the Young Turks. This is just a preview of what you will receive with TYT membership. That means exclusive interviews, panel discussions, and more of Jimmy, and of course, me. Check out this next clip, and if you like what you see, you can access full episodes of Aggressive Progressives by becoming a member. Head to tyt.com/join now.
Hey everybody, welcome to Aggressive Progressives. I'm Jimmy Dore. I'm here with the Raging Agent, Malcolm Fleshner, the miserable liberal, Stef Zamorano.
I stand with teachers. Good luck to you teachers in Denver.
Oh, that's right, that's happening.
Steve O's on a plane from San Francisco down here
Malcolm.
right now. You called me Malcolm, that's why.
Oh, did I?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I didn't notice.
Do I need to wear a white face? Is that what I need to do to get your attention?
Would you please? So yeah, Malcolm is on his way. He flies down on Tuesdays, which is smart.
Is it?
You should wait till an hour before the show you're doing, and then hop on a plane.
Yeah.
So why does he come down Tuesday morning instead of Monday morning?
Because he has a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When does he go home?
Thursday afternoon.
Oh, Thursday afternoon? Oh, okay. All right, well, all right. I say he comes Monday, leaves Wednesday afternoon. What is he doing on Thursday that's so important?
Friday post game for our members.
Yeah, right? I know.
You know, he secretly loves doing that show.
He never misses that show, but he'll miss this show. Which show's more important?
To Malcolm, he's a star of that show. On this show, he's just your appendage, a small part of the panel. But he is front and center on the Friday post game.
He is front and center on the Friday post game. So there's so much crazy stuff going on. The Ilhan Omar, I'm saying her name correctly. So it's the ultimate irony of she criticizes AIPAC because they have a control on our government, and she immediately is rebuked overboard and pummeled for it widely, immediately. And I don't know if you remember that saying.
And viciously.
And viciously. And there's a saying, and maybe I'll butcher it, but it's, if you want to know who rules over you, it's who you're not allowed to criticize. If AIPAC would have shut the F up, and all the people defending or attacking her would have shut up, nobody would have really noticed. Now, everybody notices how much AIPAC actually does control our government, and especially the Democratic Party and Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi's your enemy, by the way. I can't tell you this enough, and the fact that the Progressive Caucus voted for her is horrible. You have to have someone to fight against. And Nancy Pelosi she pushed the left to sleep. She's that Barack Obama. She sounds nice when she talks, and she's always working against you. So we have a lot of stuff to get to. Tulsi Gabbard has been smeared again. Tulsi Gabbard has been smeared again on Emmett Morning Joe. Now, I don't know if you remember, you remember in the run up to the Iraq war, people would go on and they would go, what are you, a Saddam apologist? Saddam's a bad guy, he's got rape, he gasses his own people. How could you be against our troops?
Chambers.
Why are you against our troops going into, they're doing the exact same thing to people who are talking about Syria and people talking about Venezuela. They're doing the exact same. Are you an Assad apologist? They're doing this to Tulsi Gabbard. And the thing that really breaks my heart is that lefty news shows aren't covering it. It's almost getting no coverage. By the way, it's because it's being done by a lefty news show, MSNBC. They're not really left. They're corporate warmongers, and the people on there are what they call they're the identity politic. They're not actually. They look like progressives, right? Chris Hayes is a nerd. You think he would be a progressive, right? But anyway, they all work for the man and they do the bidding of the man. They all work for the man and they all do the bidding of the man, or else they'll get fired. Right? Because if they told the truth about the Syrian war like Tulsi Gabbard does, they would be fired like Phil Donahue and Jesse Ventura was. And if they covered a progressive politician like Tulsi Gabbard fairly, they would be fired like Ed Schultz was for covering Bernie Sanders. So whenever you watch MSNBC, just know that Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, fake tough guy Lawrence O'Donnell, and Chris Matthews are completely compromised, and they're not telling you the truth. They're actors. And what they're there to do is to give you the opinion of their owners. They are owned. Okay.
No, I'm just trying to figure out if it's true that nerds are progressive. I want to do a whole study on this.
I would like to do a study on that too. I don't think they are. Most of the nerds that I know are conservatives. And then I know lots of progressive nerds. Don't get me wrong, but it just seems in comedy, in Hollywood, the nerds that I've bumped into are more conservative than they should.
So the term nerd has really evolved.
Right.
So when I was growing up, being a nerd was bad. Being a nerd meant you were socially incompetent, you were a dork, people didn't like you, you were awkward, whatever, right? Now nerd means, you are really into something. So you're a science nerd, you are a football nerd, you're a, I don't know.
My brother says that. He goes, I'm a car nerd. You're a mechanic. It's not the same. You're not.
And I've never seen so many like attractive women purport to be nerds. I think they think, or it's one of the ways of saying, I'm good looking, but I'm also smart, by saying I'm a nerd, right?
Yeah, yes.
So that term nerd, I mean, the meaning has become elusive.
I completely agree. It's been bastardized, right?
You want your nerds to be nerdy, not cool, right?
Right, you can't be a nerd and have a pack of cigarettes rolled up in your t-shirt. That's not.
He's a cigarette nerd.
He's
really into cigarettes.
Well, there's that, I wrote a joke about it, but now there's actually a show called Sex Nerd. I used to say, what's next? Oh, I'm a sex nerd? Oh, I spent all weekend with my penis inside a vagina. I'm such a dork.
So yeah, there's that woman, sex nerd Sandra, who I haven't talked to in a while, but she's a friend of the show.
Right.
She's not nerdy, she's super cool.
Not a nerd.
Like cool and progressive and liberated and very cosmopolitan, not nerdy at all in the traditional sense.
It sounds like the term nerd has been co-opted.
Well, here's what
You know what I mean? You're not, I don't know how you can be a nerd when you're a gazillionaire and you have access and you wear makeup and you I don't know, you have a certain style. I don't know if that makes you, I don't know. What makes a nerd? I thought a nerd was just somebody who was, like you were saying earlier, maybe socially awkward and
just
not
someone that's
well-rounded.
uncool.
Yes.
But now you can be a cool nerd, which is
I say,
which is you, right?
Yes, I'm a very cool, very nerdy guy. Yeah, I'm not cool or nerdy.
If you call yourself a nerd and you can't fix my computer, you're just a dork.
True.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I have this covered. I'm still putting the show together. I hope everyone understands what's happening right now. Let's get to some of our Kabit stuff before we get to the other stuff. Oh boy. Hey, did you see this? Oh, you know what? Let me get.
All right, while you're doing that, just a real quick shout out to a couple of folks. So Jenk and I, we did our annual guys trip to Denver this year, and we stayed at the Grand Hyatt one night in Denver. And that guy who checks me in is a big fan of the show, and his name is Bernie. And Bernie from the Grand Hyatt in Denver, thank you very much. He was trying desperately to do something nice for me. So he upgraded me to a nicer room, which to be honest wasn't that much nicer than the other rooms. And the Denver Grand Hyatt is just okay. It's not a great hotel, it's a fine hotel. And then he gave me access to like some kind of club access, whatever, where they have free food.
Yes.
But I forgot to use it or didn't get a chance to use it. But super nice guy. He gave me a recommendation to go to some pot shop that was really good. We didn't get to do that either. So unfortunately, I didn't take advantage of any of Bernie's assistance or recommendations, but he was a super nice guy. And he's a big supporter of the show. So thank you, Bernie.
Oh, fantastic. Look at that. So there's at least one Bernie who likes this show. Come on, am I right, huh? YouTube has announced that it is no longer gonna recommend what they call conspiracy videos. YouTube will no longer recommend videos claiming the earth is flat or making blatantly false claims about historic events like 9/11. So, what could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Now YouTube's gonna decide what is an accurate news story. So if they were, so they said like 9/11. So let's go back to 2003 when we were invading Iraq. Now everybody was saying that Iraq had WMDs and Saddam was a bad guy. Now if I put up a news article that debunks that, they're gonna say that's a conspiracy video and they're gonna suppress it. So anything that goes counter to the establishment narrative, they're going to suppress. That's what's going. So what do you think about?
So I'm going to
this?
defend YouTube because I like YouTube.
I know you don't.
Yes,
I know you like them.
and I work with them, so I have a conflict of interest. I'll disclose that to the audience. No, they're not doing that. They're doing historically established things. So they're getting a lot of flack because someone says the Earth is flat, or vaccines make people, what's the right word?
Like for
autistic or whatever, right?
Yeah. So you're not allowed to. So you're not allowed to have a dissenting view on any of that stuff.
Of course you can, but why do they need to recommend it?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So they get to decide those. Again, this is all done in secret by a handful of jagoffs up in San Francisco. Am I wrong?
Well, I don't know exactly how it's done, but
that's the problem.
Yes, I think that is interesting too. Like the process perhaps needing to be transparent.
Well, they're gonna look. There's always a slippery slope, right? And I agree that there might come a time when their decisions are wrong or questionable, whatever. But they're gonna start with the easier ones, like the flat Earth stuff. There's a big movement on the flat Earth right now because if someone does a search, some of those videos get recommended. So you keep in mind, Jimmy, that whether a video is recommended or not recommended is a choice either way. So if they say we're not going to recommend it, that's a choice. But if they do recommend it, that's also a choice. Either way, it's not transparent. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like which one is preferable? I don't know.
So that guy from Twitter was on the Joe Rogan show last week, and it made a big stink, right? A lot of people were talking about it. And
which guy?
The guy Jack, who runs Twitter. And so he said, unprovoked, he said, I think, because the president's on social media, everybody's on every company, so social media is where people are conversing. That's the town square, and they've already ruled that the president can't block you. Like it's a right to hear your president. The president's on there. Now they can block you from hearing your you know what I mean? Like that's a weird thing. So he said it's a right. He goes, yeah, I think being on Twitter is a right. Well, if you think being on Twitter is a right, if you're gonna take away someone's rights, you have to go to court to do that. You can't just have some guy do it like that. And they admit that they make mistakes all the time. So that's why if you can't have it both ways. You can't say I think social media and being on Twitter is a right, and I get to arbitrarily take away your rights without a court proceeding. So if you can't, either you think it's a right or you don't think it's a right. He said he thinks it's a right, so now he's himself. So now,
well, yes and no. So yes, you could have a proceeding, right? But what happens if you get arrested right now for suspicion of some criminal act? You would be arrested. You have to go to jail until your trial, unless you can post bail, right? So, the same analogy could apply, where you can get kicked off Twitter until you have a trial, and they can be put back. So again, the burden is on what happens in the interim between being accused and then the final adjudication. Like, should you be on the platform or should you be off the platform? And who has the burden of proof? These are all good questions, and these are issues that we got to hammer out.
Right. So those are, you're right, but again, the process has to be transparent. You have to present your evidence, right? You can't just all of a sudden I log into Twitter and you're off. Well, you have to show me the evidence. You have to show me why, and then you have to provide a path for me to present my case.
Well, theoretically, they do that. I don't know if they actually do that in real life. I don't know how it's executed, but yes, when they kick you off, they're supposed to tell you why you've been kicked off, what violations you've committed, and there is supposed to be a process to be reinstated. Again, I don't know how well that's. I've never been kicked off, so I don't know how that works.
Did you see they started kicking? I have. Did you see how they started kicking people off for saying to tweeting to reporters learn to code?
The what?
So when the coal miners were getting laid off from their jobs and they were Trump voters, a lot of people in journalism, media, news media, tweeted at them, learn to code. And that was considered an insult.
Learn the code?
Learn to code.
Learn to code. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so learn to code and get another job rather than digging for coal.
So then now there's been a wave of layoffs in media, right, news media, and so people started, right-wingers started tweeting at those journalists, learn to code.
I see, okay.
They started kicking people off Twitter for tweeting learn to code. They kicked off the editor of the Daily Caller, which I'm no fan of the Daily Caller, but it is a legitimate news source. It just happens to be right-wing, and I disagree with their stuff, but you can't They did that. And so then they gave that guy an email and they said, here's the tweet. And it was the one where he said, learn to code. And he said, no, I'm actually going to, I'm appealing this or whatever. I'm gonna, I'm not deleting that and I'm gonna appeal this and I'm gonna get a lawyer or whatever. And then Twitter came back, oh, it was a mistake. What the, that wasn't a mistake. That what they deleted him or they put him on a suspension because he tweeted learn to code and then that was a mistake. No, then they figured out, oh, this is a guy with power and we're screwing ourselves. So it's again, it's willy-nilly. We're leaving it up to Silicon Valley billionaires to decide what videos.
It's a little more complicated than that, and here's why. Are there mistakes? Of course, all the time. Now, there's all these people who claim someone should have been kicked off Twitter, but they were not kicked off Twitter.
Well, how about Kathy Griffin, who called for doxing those teenage kids,
yes,
high schoolers?
Right.
She's not kicked off.
No, and then there's worse cases of people who committed really bad acts, like, you know, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna murder you, and like really bad stuff, and then they actually do it, and then you know, so Twitter got in trouble for not having done something earlier. So it's just like the criminal justice system. There's so many people at play. It's an imperfect system, and there's massive injustices going in multiple directions. So I'm not saying let's leave things alone as they are, but it's a little bit more complicated than, oh, it's just Jack from Silicon Valley who owns Twitter that's making decisions on his own for his own benefit. I mean, he has a huge team of people who are making these decisions, and sometimes they're terribly wrong. Look, I can't disclose which platform it is, but a platform recently made a huge mistake with us, a huge mistake. And it impacted a whole bunch of our videos, and that hurts them and it hurts us on monetization. And they fixed it because they screwed that up. So mistakes happen for reasons that are good and bad. So we have to have all the facts of any particular case to really ferret out what went wrong.
Yeah, and I think it was obvious, like I was watching that interview with Jack from Twitter and Joe Rogan, and it was obvious to me the problem is a lack of transparency. Because Joe asked Jack from Twitter, hey, why was Alex Jones kicked off Twitter? He couldn't tell him. He goes, I don't really know the particulars of that case. Now, one of two things are happening there. Either that guy is such a screw-up idiot nincompoop that he was going on the Joe Rogan show, the #1 podcast, to talk about this stuff, and he didn't know the particulars of the biggest case that everyone was talking about that had to do with it. So either he's the biggest moron, idiot, nincompoop, incompetent, jerk in the world, or he's lying. So he's not an nincompoop. He's one of the smartest guys around. He's a super cool, super smart investor. That Twitter isn't his only deal. He knows more about everything than anybody. So he knows, and he didn't. I don't know why he didn't want to say why Alex Jones was kicked off, but I'm going to challenge the veracity.
What did he say?
I don't want to call him a liar, which I already did. Sorry, but I think he's not being truthful.
What did he say?
How could he said? I don't know the particulars.
Oh.
I'm like, you don't know. So I was like, really? You know you're coming on to talk about this stuff and you don't know the particulars of the Alex Jones thing, the biggest case in the history of your thing. It seemed so not real. Anyway, so here it is, YouTube announces it will no longer recommend conspiracy videos. So again, they can't give you a can they give us a definition on what a conspiracy video is? No, they can't give us a definition on what a conspiracy video is. So again, this is gonna be willy-nilly random. And I just found out that they suppress Peter Joseph stuff, right? The guy who did the Zeitgeist films and now he has that great book. So I'm gonna show you something. Here's Tom Brokaw. This might not seem like it's connected to this, but it is. So here's Tom Brokaw. He was on the Meet the Press with Chuck Todd, and they were talking about Hispanics, and Tom Brokaw said this. Let's listen.
A lot of this we don't want to talk about, but the fact is, on the Republican side, a lot of people see the rise of an extraordinary, important new constituency in American politics, Hispanics, who will come here and all be Democrats. Also, I hear—
Okay, first of all, you're wrong. 30% of Hispanics voted for Trump. Think about that. So again, he's just, this is your newsman. Here we go.
And I just want to point out where he says they all come here. Actually, some of us are here. Some of us are actual natives to the United States. We all come here. All right, go ahead, Jim.
So let's finish. There we go.
When I push people a little harder, I don't know whether I want brown grandbabies. I mean, that's also a part of it. It's the intermarriage that is going on and the culture.
So he just said that people say, well, the problem is I don't want brown grandbabies. He says, when I push people a little harder. Where are you, Tom? That people say to your face, I don't want brown grandbabies. What barbecues? Are you hanging out with David Duke? Who are you hanging out with that says this stuff and you don't go, what? I don't want brown.
I've literally never heard anyone personally, and no one has ever told me that they've heard someone say this.
I don't want any brown grandbabies.
I don't need brown ground. That is unbelievable.
It's hard for you to even say,
I
isn't
can't even say it. Yeah, brown grandbabies.
Like, where is he hanging out that they're saying this stuff? That's my question.
In his living room.
Right. So where are the barbecues you're going to, Tom? Here we go.
That are conflicting with each other. I also happen to believe that the Hispanics should work harder at assimilation. That's one.
No comprendo.
He just-
I don't understand what he's saying.
He literally just said Hispanics need to work harder at assimilation. Hispanics, you know where they should especially work harder at assimilation? In places like San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco. These are the places, El Paso. These are the places they should work harder at assimilation. New places like New Mexico. Did you know Montana is a Spanish word? Where else should they work harder at assimilation, Tom? And what a better way to assimilate than marrying someone brown and having brown babies? Boom, assimilation. Isn't that amazing? So he literally said they have to work harder at assimilation. So that I'll throw it to my panel.
Well, okay, so I'm an immigrant, and I was forced to assimilate because I was often the only Asian kid in the neighborhood, school district, whatever. And what he's saying is so unbelievably unfair because a lot of times we do want to assimilate, but we can't because we're excluded. So he puts all the burden on a minority community that comes to this country and says the burden's on you to assimilate to our culture. It's an unbelievable thing for him to say. I mean, it goes both ways, obviously, right? And yeah, and that said, people have assimilated.
I know. What is he
to
talking
great
about?
lengths. You know, like what more? I mean, what does he mean?
I don't know what he means.
So he's just blabbering.
He's just I don't. Every time I get my car fixed, it's a Hispanic. Every time I go get something to eat, it's a Hispanic. They cut everybody's lawn in my neighborhood. How are they not assimilating? I don't understand what he's talking about. How they're not assimilating.
I mean, are they supposed to dress more white? Are they supposed to speak with his accent or this? What are they supposed to do?
They're supposed to wear an ascot or a pocket square. They all have construction jobs. I mean, what are you talking? I mean, Hispanics come here. They pick they work in the farms. They pick our fruit. They have construction. How much more can they assimilate? They're the backbone of our goddamn economy. How much more can they assimilate? They're the backbone of our economy, Tom. So anyway, so the reason I bring that up is not to show you how out of touch Tom Brokaw is, but he is. I guess I want to show you that too. But it goes to our YouTube thing. So now I put that up. That video, I did a video on this and I made fun of Tom, just like we're making fun of him here. And here's how YouTube, not suitable for most advertisers. I complained about it or I requested a review and confirmed. Why? That's just, nope. That's just somebody, they don't get to tell me why. They don't tell me why. They don't go, yeah, we don't like the word Hispanics. Why is that demonetized? That's a news story. I'm playing a video from Meet the Press. Why is that demonetized? So that's what I'm talking about. I have personal, interactions with YouTube, and they're not good. Some of them are good, but again, it's not just YouTube. And the problem is that YouTube is too successful, right? So if YouTube was like Daily Motion or somebody else, I don't think people would care. But there is no competitor to YouTube. And if there ever was gonna be a competitor to YouTube, Google would buy them and absorb them. So there will never be a competitor to YouTube, which is why YouTube is now a monopoly, which is why Twitter is a monopoly, which is why Facebook is a monopoly. No, there used to be Friendster. Friendster wasn't a monopoly because then came MySpace. MySpace then wasn't, now it's Facebook. That's it. There is no competitor to Facebook. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg admitted it in testimony, open testimony in front of Congress. So there is no, so that's the problem with these things, is that these are now considered utilities, they're monopolies, and when you do that, you're supposed to have transparent, equal, consistent standards. And that's not what's happening. This isn't what standard are they following by demonetizing my Tom Brokaw video? What is the standard? And then they're gonna suppress that video. So this is what I'm talking about. All right. We're still in the kibitz part of the show, and we haven't even gotten into the thick of the show. So when we do kick off the show, I bet it'll be right when Malcolm gets here. When we do kick off the real show, this is just the kibitz part. We're gonna go ahead and cover the Tulsi Gabbard being smeared again. By the way, I just got a text from Kyle Kulinski as I'm sitting here, and I told you, as we showed you, the entire Russiagate thing is one big conspiracy theory without evidence. And that's what's ironic, to see guys like Sam Harris push this Russiagate conspiracy theory that doesn't have any evidence. And we've told you, is there evidence that Trump has business relationships that are shady with Russia? All day. Does Trump have shady business relationship with Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Israeli? All day. So this is just a cooked up, this is when you started a conclusion and then you cherry pick evidence, and that's what Russiagate has been. People and everybody who's covered this covers it exactly the same way. They started a conclusion and then they cherry pick evidence. That's the opposite of journalism. That's why Cenk used to rail against the media when half the country thought that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction years after the invasion of Iraq. And he said every editor in every newsroom should be fired because the people who go to them for information don't know the first thing about Iraq. Well, right now, Russiagate, nobody knows what's going on in Russiagate because everybody's been misreporting it. They've been reporting it, starting at a conclusion that Trump committed treason and colluded in the election illegally with Russia. And then they go to try to find evidence. They've never found any. They found lots of circumstantial evidence, and they've gotten a lot of financial crimes that have nothing to do with Russiagate. And now everybody's a Russian. By the way, Tulsi Gabbard's a Russian, I'm a Russian, Glenn Greenwald's a Russian, Bernie Sanders is a Russian, Black Lives Matters is a Russian, the Green Party's a Russian. Just like I told everybody who pushed Russiagate that this would happen, it's happened, and now everybody's a Russian. Now Mitch McConnell's a Russian, did you see that? Mitch McConnell's a Russian, so thank God. And so this is what I'm talking about. So here, Kyle Kulinski just texted me this. This is pretty awesome. It's a tweet from NBC News, and I'll read it to you. It says, exclusive. Senate Intelligence Committee is approaching the end of its investigation into the 2016 election, having uncovered no direct evidence of a conspiracy between Trump campaign and Russia.
What are they going to talk about today?
So what they're going to talk about today, Steph, is how this doesn't mean anything. What they're gonna say is, this is what's called an unfalsifiable theory. It's an unfalsifiable conspiracy theory because even evidence against it that debunks it is used to back it up. Hey, Trump is going against Putin in Venezuela. Oh, of course he's doing that just to show that blah, blah, blah. Hey, Trump is pulling out of the nuclear treaty. Oh, of course he's doing that. But hey, Trump is putting more sanctions on Russia. Hey, of course. So this is an unfalsifiable theory. It's been intentionally misreported by 99% and 9% of the news media. This is one of the only shows that has gotten it correct. And this is our justification. Again, no one's ever gonna apologize or say you were right. That's not why I did this. I did this because that's what I'm supposed to do as an alternative news broadcaster, is I'm supposed to present an alternative viewpoint of the news. And if your alternative news source isn't doing that, they're not an alternative news source. And there's no point for them to be. So here it is, NBC's exclusive, no evidence. 2 years, they had a FISA warrant, they had his phones tapped, they got every email, every text, no evidence. They just brought out the 5th Army Brigade to arrest Roger Stone at 3 o'clock in the morning. No evidence. Okay, so let's just talk about that real quick. What do you think about that?
So I think much like the word nerd has evolved, the word collusion has also evolved. The word collusion can mean whatever you want it to mean. And so you're right in that it's unfalsifiable, because no matter what happens, no matter what evidence we have, and no matter what absence of evidence we have, there's gonna be a certain segment of the population that wants to believe that Trump and Russia colluded to win the election. I think that's gonna be one of those things like the WMDs of Iraq, where after the fact, people are like, oh no, I didn't believe that at all.
Yes,
right?
I know.
They're gonna do that at some point. I can't wait to get there. But for now, so like this is what I've been saying all along, and I don't know if it's exactly what you're saying. I totally believe Trump is a career criminal, and he's done shady deals with the Russians, the Chinese, the Argentinians, the whoever.
Turkey, Israel,
Turkey for sure,
Saudi Arabia.
Anyone who's willing to deal.
Anybody who'll do it.
I mean, he was gonna do some sort of stupid like live stream for the State of the Union, where if you give him $5, you get your name on the live. Like this guy will do anything to make a little extra money, right? He has no sense of decorum, decency, or fairness, anything. So did he do something kind of shady? Of course he did. Of course he did. But I don't think he colluded with the Russians to steal the election. And I would go further and say that if we had telephonic evidence of Putin and Trump whispering to each other, hey, help me win this election, I don't think the American people would care. Okay, because that was 2 years ago. It's done. Most American people
have accepted the election and have moved on.
Yes, they've moved on, and they want real answers to real questions. And we talk about all kinds of privilege, right? White privilege and male privilege. This is like elite media bubble think tank privilege to to pontificate endlessly on what might have happened, could have happened, should have happened 2 years ago in an election that they lost to this clown of a man, right? So I think for most Americans, what they want is for our politicians to move on and find real solutions to some serious problems that we have in our country.
I agree, Steph.
I think it's really interesting that you talk about that Trump has been a career criminal, right? And then I was just thinking, oh, Jamie Dimon, career criminal. Dick Cheney, career criminal. And so what we've done in the United States is we've normalized criminality by the oligarchs. And we are suffering for it. And so like we're spending all this time talking about Russiagate. And I think, and I've shared this before, that I really think that Trump did not think he was going to become president, and he continued to conduct business. That's what he wanted. He was trying to, get another business, get another hotel, and this was all good for business. I think he was just as surprised as the country was that he became president, and all of his behavior just was in lockstep with his previous behavior historically. And I also just think that, that why are we spending so much time on Russia when we're in such desperate straits right now?
Because the people who control and own the media want us to talk about Russia, because if we weren't talking about Russia, we'd have to talk about the rot that's inside the Democratic Party, the rot that's inside our media culture, which propped up Trump, which gave him $2 billion in free media and showed his empty podium instead of showing Bernie Sanders. So we'd have to look at our actual problems and fix them. But the people who are in the establishment they like the status quo. So they don't want to upset the status quo. So it's easier to pretend that Russia is the cause of our problems and talk about Russia nonstop, because Rachel Maddow will do it gladly. And lots of other people will spend their whole news shows talking about Russia and Trump's connection instead of talking about what we should be talking about, which is that 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 30 million Americans still don't have health care. That 50% of Americans are poor or low income, and 63% of them can't afford a $1,000 emergency. That's what we should be talking about in the United States every goddamn day. And we're spending $712 billion a year on our military, which is $200 billion more than we were at the height of the Iraq war. We're not talking about any of that stuff. We're not talking about any of it. When you talk about Trump and Russia, you're not talking about something else. And when you're talking about Trump and Russia, all you're doing is jerking yourself off.
All rotting empires point their fingers externally.
That's right.
They don't want to face the rot that's internal. And one of the reasons why, or there are many reasons why I don't believe there's collusion between Trump and Russia, is I don't think he wanted to win. I don't think he colluded to win because he didn't want to win because he was doing this as a marketing device to amp up his business empire. He was going to start a whole
network with Roger Ailes, right?
Roger Ailes. And the night of the election, I never saw Trump look so sad. He didn't look happy at all because Trump would be like, he'd be like boasting and strutting and high-fiving and ass-slapping, but he was morose.
I know.
He didn't look happy at all.
All right, we're up against a break. When we come back, Malcolm will be here. We're gonna talk about Joe Biden wanting to go into Venezuela, the NBC smearing Tulsi Gabbard as a Russian, and a lot more. We're gonna talk about Venezuela, by the way, with Max Blumenthal. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoy this free clip of aggressive progressives on the Young Turks. This is just a preview of what you will receive with TYT membership. That means exclusive interviews, panel discussions, and more of Jimmy, and of course, me. If you like what you saw, you can access full episodes of Aggressive Progressives by becoming a member. Head to tyt.com/join now.